The warning came at 0800 hours, Luna Station time. Commander Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. 200 massive shapes had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres called from the communications station, his voice tight with tension. "We're receiving a transmission from the unknown fleet." Sarah set down her coffee cup and walked to the center of Luna Station's command center. Through the massive viewing windows, Earth hung like a blue marble in the black of space. Home. The thing they were all sworn to protect. "Put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that belonged in nightmares. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, its crystalline skin catching and reflecting light. In sharp, painful flashes, 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. Its face was angular and cruel, with 6 eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet." The creature spoke, its voice like breaking glass. "I am Admiral Thexavar of the Zephyrian Empire, 1st Sword of the Galactic Hegemony. You will observe our fleet and understand your position." The screen shifted to show the alien armada. Sarah felt her breath catch despite herself. Each ship was enormous, bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The smallest vessels were the size of city blocks. The largest could have housed a million people. Their hulls were black as space itself, covered in weapons that could crack planets. "We have come to offer you membership in the hegemony," Admiral Thexvar continued. "You will submit to our rule. You will provide tribute. You will serve. This is not a request." The screen changed again, showing world after world. Beautiful planets with crystal cities, lush forests and blue oceans. Then the same worlds burning. Cities reduced to glass, forests turned to ash, oceans boiling. "These worlds thought they could resist," the alien said. "They learned otherwise. We give you 1 rotation of your planet to decide. Submit or share their fate." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent except for the hum of computers and the soft whisper of air recycling systems. Lieutenant Torres broke the silence. "Ma'am, I'm reading similar transmissions being sent to Mars Colony, Europa Station, and all the outer settlements." Sarah nodded slowly. Around the command center, her officers waited for orders. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. A few just looked tired, as if they had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. "Get me fleet command," Sarah said. "All channels, emergency override." Within minutes, every human settlement in the solar system was connected. Mars Colony, with its red dust and underground cities. Europa Station floating beneath the ice. The mining platforms in the asteroid belt. The research stations at Jupiter and Saturn. Even the long-range survey ships beyond Pluto. Faces appeared on screens. Throughout the command center. Admiral Jackson on Mars, his weathered face grim. Captain Liu from Europa, her jaw set with determination. Commander Okafor from the asteroid belt, his dark eyes flashing with anger. "You all saw the transmission," Sarah said. "They want us to surrender." "Like hell," growled Admiral Jackson. "I didn't spend 40 years building these colonies to hand them over to some crystal-faced monsters." Captain Liu leaned forward. "What's our tactical assessment? Can we fight them?" Sarah looked around the command center. Her officers were listening. To every word. Good. They needed to hear this. "Computer, display known fleet strength," she ordered. The main screen lit up with data. 12 patrol ships, 8 frigates, 4 destroyers, 2 cruisers. It was pathetic compared to what they faced. "That's it?" Commander Okafor asked. "Against 200 of those things?" Sarah smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Computer, display actual fleet strength. Authorization Chen Alpha 7. The screen changed. Numbers climbed. Ship classifications appeared that weren't supposed to exist. Weapons platforms that were listed as mining equipment. Research vessels with enough firepower to level cities. The silence stretched for long seconds. "Holy shit," whispered Lieutenant Torres, forgetting protocol. "Language, Lieutenant," Sarah said mildly. "But yes. Holy shit indeed." Admiral Jackson was grinning now. "How long?" 70 years, Sarah replied. Ever since we detected the first signs of alien technology in the Outer Rim, every mining ship with hidden weapons, every research station with disguised defenses, every colony with underground bunkers and shield generators. She touched her console, and more data flowed across the screens. Hidden shipyards and asteroid bases, weapons factories disguised as agricultural domes, a massive network of sensors and communications relays that looked like simple navigation beacons. "The cargo hauler Lucky Strike?" asked Captain Liu, reading from her screen. 16 fusion missiles and point defense systems that could take out a frigate, Sarah confirmed. The ore processor heavy metal? Railgun that could punch through a battleship's armor? The farming platform Green Acres? Sarah's grin widened. That one's special. Orbital bombardment system designed to look like a fertilizer sprayer. Commander. Okafor started laughing. "We turned our entire civilization into a weapon." "We turned our entire civilization into a surprise," Sarah corrected. "Now are we ready to spring it?" The responses came back immediately. Mars Colony reported ready. Europa Station ready. Every mining platform, research station, and hidden weapons depot reported the same thing. Ready. Sarah opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "Admiral Thexvar," she said, her voice calm and professional. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. Thank you for your transmission." The alien appeared on screen again, his crystalline features showing satisfaction. "You accept our terms?" Sarah's smile grew wider. Around the command center, her officers were grinning now too. Throughout the solar system, on every human ship and station, people were smiling. "We appreciate your demonstration of force," Sarah said. "Very impressive. 200 ships, planet-killing weapons, the works. Really top-notch intimidation." Admiral Thexvar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then you surrender?" "Oh no," Sarah said, her voice still pleasant and conversational. "We're not surrendering. We're just grateful for the chance to show you something." She touched her console. Throughout human space, transponders activated. Weapons came online. Ships that had been hiding for decades revealed themselves. The alien's expression changed as his sensors began registering the new contacts. Dozens became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. "You see, Admiral," Sarah continued, "we've been expecting visitors like you for a long time. We've been preparing. Every human ship, every station, every settlement was built with one purpose in mind. The alien fleet was now surrounded. From every direction, human vessels appeared. Some dropped their disguises completely. Others simply powered up weapons that had been hidden for generations. "What is this?" Admiral Thexvar demanded. Sarah's smile was cold as space itself. "This is humanity saying hello. Now let us show you what we do to uninvited guests who threaten our home." She cut the transmission and turned to her officers. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen. You are authorized to engage. Show them what happens when someone tries to scare a human." The battle for Earth was about to begin. Admiral Thexvar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The numbers kept climbing. What should have been a simple system with a few primitive ships now showed thousands of contacts. His 4 eyes tracked the data streams as his officers shouted reports from their stations. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the asteroid belt." "Sir, the mining platforms are powering up weapons." "Admiral, those research stations aren't research stations at all." Thexvar's crystalline skin flashed red with anger. In 70 campaigns across the galaxy, he had never encountered anything like this. Species either surrendered immediately when faced with hegemony might, or they fought with their pathetic navies and died quickly. No one had ever hidden their true strength. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His science officer, a thin creature with too many limbs, worked frantically at his console. "Sir, they've been building for decades, maybe longer. Every structure in this system has hidden purposes. The asteroid miners aren't miners. They're weapons platforms. The farming stations have point defense grids. Even their communications. Satellites have been weaponized." On Earth, Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet's confusion with grim satisfaction. Humanity had learned one important lesson from studying alien technology over the past 70 years. Every species they encountered built their ships and stations for show. Massive hulls to intimidate, obvious weapons to frighten enemies into submission. Humans had gone the opposite direction. They built everything to look harmless. Status report, Sarah called. Mining Platform 7 reports ready, Lieutenant Torres announced. They've jettisoned their cargo containers and extended their railgun array. Europa Station? Defense grid is active. They're showing 40 missile tubes and laser batteries that were hidden under the ice processing equipment. Outer patrol ships? All vessels report ready. The Wanderer has dropped her merchant disguise. She's showing her true classification now. Heavy cruiser with enough firepower to take on a battleship. Sarah nodded. The Wanderer was her favorite. Example of human thinking. To any alien observer, she looked like a simple cargo hauler, slow, bulky, unarmed. In reality, her cargo holds were full of fusion warheads, her hull was military-grade armor, and her cargo handling equipment could launch missiles faster than most destroyers. What about the special projects? Sarah asked. Lieutenant Torres grinned. Project Hammer is ready for deployment, Project Shield is online. And Project Surprise? He paused dramatically. Project Surprise is just waiting for your word. Admiral Thexvar was still trying to understand what he was facing when the first human ships moved. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they began to spread out, taking positions that surrounded the hegemony fleet completely. It was a classic tactical maneuver, but executed on a scale that defied belief. Thousands of ships moving in perfect coordination, each one revealing weapons that shouldn't exist on vessels that looked like civilian craft. They're surrounding us, his tactical officer reported. I can see that, Thexvar snapped. How many ships are we facing? Approximately. Admiral, the number keeps changing. They're launching smaller craft from the larger platforms. Some of the asteroid bases are deploying what appear to be fighter squadrons. Thexvar studied the display. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Every moon, every asteroid, every space station was armed and ready. But it was more than that. They had created a web of interlocking defenses that covered every possible approach. No wonder they smiled, he muttered. His communication officer looked up. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from multiple human sources. It appears to be music? The bridge speakers crackled to life. What came through was unlike anything in the hegemony's databases. Human voices singing in harmony, instruments creating complex melodies, all of it broadcast from ships throughout the system. What is this? Thexvar demanded. His cultural analysis officer, one of the few specialists the hegemony bothered to train, looked puzzled. Sir, I believe they're singing war songs. The harmony suggests unity of purpose. The rhythm matches their ship movements. They're coordinating their battle preparations through music. On Luna Station, Sarah listened to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, echoing from speakers throughout the command center. It was Admiral Jackson's choice, broadcast from Mars Colony to every human ship in the system. Other stations were adding their own selections. Europa Station was playing Ride of the Valkyries. The asteroid miners had chosen We Will Rock You, and the rhythmic stomping could be heard across multiple channels. It's working, reported Lieutenant Torres. The aliens are confused by the music. Their formations are becoming disorganized. Sarah wasn't surprised. Humans had always used music for coordination, from naval shanties to military marches. But aliens who conquered through fear and intimidation wouldn't understand the power of shared rhythm and melody to unite people across vast distances. Admiral Thexvar tried to regain control of the situation. All ships prepare to engage. Target the largest human vessels first. Show them the price of resistance. But as his fleet moved to attack positions, the human response caught him off guard again. Instead of panicking or running, the human ships began to move in complex patterns. Ships that had seemed scattered suddenly revealed they were part of larger formations. Mining platforms that had appeared isolated were actually nodes in a coordinated defense network. Sir, his tactical officer called, the human ships are moving in formations we don't recognize. It's almost like they're dancing. He was right. The human ships were moving to the rhythm of their music, creating patterns that were both tactical and artistic. Destroyers weaved between larger ships in time to the beat. Fighters launched from hidden bays in perfect synchronization with musical crescendos. Sarah watched the alien confusion with professional interest. Humans had spent decades studying every alien encounter, learning from species that had fallen to the hegemony. The key insight had come from a simple observation. Every alien military followed rigid, predictable patterns. They attacked the same way, defended the same way, thought the same way. Humans had deliberately done the opposite. They trained for chaos, improvisation, and creative thinking. Their tactics were based on jazz music, improvisational theater, and chaos theory rather than rigid military doctrine. All stations, Sarah broadcast, commence Operation Welcome Wagon. Across human space, the response was immediate. Every hidden weapon came online simultaneously. Missile tubes that had been disguised as ore processing equipment opened to reveal fusion warheads. Agricultural sprayers swiveled to aim particle beam weapons. Communications arrays unfolded into massive railgun barrels. The hegemony fleet found itself facing a level of firepower they hadn't thought possible from a primitive species. But more than that, they were facing it from directions they hadn't considered, using weapons they didn't recognize, deployed by tactics that made no sense. Admiral Thexavar watched his tactical display fill with threat warnings. Every human platform was armed. Every ship was dangerous. The entire solar system had been turned into a weapons system pointed directly at his fleet. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving another transmission from the human leader." "Sarah." Chen appeared on the screen again, still smiling that cold smile. Behind her, Thexvar could see human officers working calmly at their stations, as if being outnumbered by alien invaders was just another day at the office. "Admiral Thexvar," Sarah said pleasantly, "I hope you're enjoying our little welcome party. We've put a lot of effort into it over the years." "This is impossible," Thexvar replied. "No species has ever resisted the hegemony fleet." Sarah's smile widened. "Well, you've never met humans before. We tend to specialize in impossible things. Now you have a choice. You can leave our system peacefully, or you can find out just how creative humans get when someone threatens their home." The alien admiral's skin flashed through several colors as he processed his options. His fleet was powerful, but the humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Worse, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "You cannot defeat the entire hegemony," he said finally. "Maybe not," Sarah agreed. "But we can definitely defeat you. And after that, well, we'll figure out the rest as we go along. That's another thing humans are good at." She paused, her expression becoming serious. "Last chance, Admiral. Leave now or we'll show you what happens when you try to scare a species that thinks impossible odds just make things more interesting." The battle lines were drawn. The choice was made. The war for human freedom was about to begin. Admiral Thexvar made his decision with the arrogance that had conquered 47 worlds. "All ships open fire. Show these primitives the power of the hegemony." The alien fleet unleashed hell. 200 warships fired simultaneously, their weapons lighting up space like a deadly fireworks display. Plasma beams that could melt mountains lanced toward human positions. Fusion missiles capable of cracking moons streaked across the void. Energy weapons that had reduced proud civilizations to atomic dust reached out for their targets. The humans should have died in the first volley. Their hidden ships should have been revealed as pathetic disguises, their defenses swept away like leaves in a hurricane. Admiral Thexavar watched his display, waiting for the satisfaction of seeing human arrogance punished. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships lived. "Report!" Thexavar demanded as his weapons struck their targets. "Sir, the human vessels are taking damage, but they're not stopping," his tactical officer replied, his voice confused. "The mining platform we hit with a full plasma barrage is still operational. It's still shooting at us." On Mining Platform 7, Chief Engineer Maria Santos watched sparks fly from damaged consoles while her crew rerouted power through emergency systems. Half the platform was gone. twisted metal glowing red-hot from the alien attack. But the other half was still fighting. Reactor 3 is offline, called Technician Kim from across the smoke-filled control room. Switching to backup power. Life support is failing in sections C through F, reported another voice. Maria grinned fiercely as she worked to restore the platform's railgun. Then we'll fight from sections A and B. Jenkins, can you get me firing control back online? Working. On it, Chief. I'm routing it through the coffee maker's power supply. Whatever works. These crystal-faced bastards want to see how humans fight? Let's show them. The railgun came back online with a sound like thunder. Platform 7 might be half destroyed, but its main weapon was still operational. The magnetic accelerator fired a tungsten rod at a significant fraction of light speed, punching through the shields of a hegemony cruiser like it was paper. This scene played out across the solar system. Human ships and stations took devastating damage and kept fighting. When main weapons were destroyed, they switched to secondaries. When those failed, they improvised. The cargo hauler Lucky Strike lost her missile launchers in the first exchange, so her crew began ramming fusion charges directly into alien hulls. Admiral Thexvar watched in growing disbelief as his tactical display showed human vessels that should be dead continuing to fight. How are they still operational? Our weapons should have destroyed them completely. His science officer was running constant scans, his multiple limbs dancing over his console. Sir, their construction philosophy appears to be completely different from ours. Instead of single points of failure, they've built in massive redundancy. When we destroy their primary systems, secondary and tertiary systems take over. That's inefficient, Thexvar protested. It wastes space and resources. Yes, sir, but it means their ships don't die easily. The human approach to ship design had been influenced by 70 years of studying alien wreckage. They discovered that every species built ships the same way: impressive, intimidating, and fragile. Massive weapons and heavy armor. But if you hit the right spot, the entire ship died. Humans had chosen a different path. Their ships were ugly, utilitarian, and nearly impossible to kill quickly. Every system had backups. Every weapon had alternatives. Every power source could reroute through any other system on the ship. Captain Rodriguez of the Sisyphus demonstrated this perfectly. Her ship was a converted cargo hauler that had taken direct hits from 3 different alien vessels. Her main engines were gone. Her primary weapons were destroyed. Her bridge was open to space. But Captain Rodriguez was still fighting from the auxiliary control room, using her ship's cargo handling systems to launch improvised missiles while her crew fought fires with garden hoses they'd converted to carry fire suppression foam. Engineering, I need more power to the makeshift missile launcher, she called over the comm. I'm routing it through the waste reclamation system, came the reply. It's going to smell terrible, but you'll have power. I'll take smelly power over no power. Load another shipping container with explosives. The hegemony had never encountered an enemy that treated devastating damage as a minor inconvenience. Their psychological warfare, based on creating fear through overwhelming displays of power, was completely ineffective against humans who seemed to get more determined the more damage they took. Sir, reported his communication officer, we're intercepting human communications. They appear to be enjoying themselves. It was true. Across the human fleet, crews were responding to mortal danger with jokes, encouragement, and an enthusiasm that baffled their alien opponents. The bridge crew of Europa Station was singing drinking songs while they coordinated point defense against incoming missiles. The mining crews in the asteroid belt were placing bets on who could hit the most alien ships with improvised weapons. Sarah Chen listened to the chatter from her fleet and felt a fierce pride. This was humanity at its best, creative, stubborn, and absolutely refusing to give up no matter how impossible the odds. Ma'am, Lieutenant Torres reported, the aliens are concentrating fire on our larger platforms. They're trying to eliminate our heavy weapons. Let them try, Sarah replied. Execute Phase 2. Throughout human space, the real surprises began to reveal themselves. What the aliens had identified as the humans' biggest weapons platforms were actually decoys. The real heavy hitters had been hiding in plain sight, disguised as the most innocent-looking structures in the system. The research station Peaceful Studies dropped its camouflage to reveal the largest mass driver ever constructed by human hands. The agricultural platform Green Acres unfolded its disguised orbital bombardment system. Even Luna City revealed hidden weapons batteries that had been built into what looked like residential domes. But the biggest surprise came from Earth itself. As the alien fleet focused their attacks on the obvious targets, the planet's surface began to show new lights. Not cities or industrial complexes, but massive weapon installations that had been hidden for generations. Project Hammer is now online, Sarah announced to her fleet. All stations prepare for planetary fire support. Admiral Thexvar's flagship shook under the impact of a railgun slug fired from Earth's surface. The projectile had traveled from the planet to his ship in seconds, carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through his best shields and armor like they weren't there. "Where did that come from?" he demanded. "The planet's surface, sir. They have ground-based weapons capable of orbital engagement." More slugs followed from different points on Earth. Each one was fired from installations that looked like industrial facilities or research centers, but were actually military weapons designed to defend the homeworld. The aliens found themselves under fire from directions they hadn't even considered. "This is impossible," Thexvar raged. "No species builds their entire civilization around military preparation, but humans had. Not because they were naturally warlike, but because they had learned early that the universe was full of things that wanted to hurt them. They had prepared for this day with the same methodical determination that had taken them from caves to the stars." Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the general communication channel, audible to every human ship in the system. "This is Sisyphus. My ship is dead. My crew is down to half strength and we're fighting with jury-rigged weapons and pure stubbornness. But we're still here, we're still fighting, and these alien bastards are going to learn what happens when you threaten our home." Cheer went up from thousands of human throats across dozens of ships and stations. They were outgunned, outmanned, and facing an enemy with technology decades ahead of their own. They were also having the time of their lives. The Hegemony Fleet, designed to conquer through fear and intimidation, found themselves fighting an enemy that treated impossible odds as just another interesting challenge. Every human ship they destroyed seemed to inspire the others to fight harder. Every weapon they knocked out was replaced by something improvised from spare parts and human ingenuity. Admiral Thexvar realized he was no longer fighting a normal battle. He was fighting an entire species that had spent 70 years preparing for this exact moment, and they were enjoying every second of it. The tide was beginning to turn, and the aliens were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something that had been waiting patiently for the chance to show the galaxy what humans could do when properly motivated. The war was far from over, but the galaxy was about to learn a new lesson. Never threaten the home of a species that finds impossible odds inspiring rather than intimidating. The battle had been raging for 6 hours when Captain Elena Rodriguez made the decision that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Her ship, the Sisyphus, was dying around her. Main power was gone. Life support was failing. Half her crew was dead or wounded, but her ship still had momentum, and Elena Rodriguez had an idea. "All hands," she announced over the ship's failing communication system. "This is the captain. We've taken everything they could throw at us, and we're still here. Our weapons are gone, our engines are dead, but we've got one shot left." In the POOR, auxiliary control room, now serving as the bridge since the real bridge was open to space, her remaining crew looked at her with expressions ranging from grim determination to something approaching glee. "Ma'am," asked Chief Engineer Patel, blood running down his face from a head wound, "are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Elena smiled. It was not a sane smile. "I'm suggesting we show these crystal-faced bastards what a cargo hauler can do when she's properly motivated. Patel, can you give me one last burn from the maneuvering thrusters? I can route power through the emergency battery backup. Won't last long, but it'll give us about 30 seconds of thrust. That's all. I need navigation. Plot me a collision course with that big son of a bitch." She pointed at the main display, showing Admiral Thexvar's flagship. "Engineering. I want every fusion charge we have left set to detonate on impact." The crew exchanged glances. They all knew it was suicide. They also knew it was the right thing to do. "Ma'am," said Communications Officer Chen, "should I record a message for transmission?" Elena thought for a moment. "Put me on all channels. I want every human ship to hear this." Her voice carried across space to every human vessel in the system. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the cargo hauler Sisyphus. To my fellow humans, it's been an honor serving with you. To the alien fleet, this is for everyone who said humans don't belong in the stars." The Sisyphus, all 40,000 tons of converted cargo hauler, began her final run. She wasn't fast anymore, but she was massive and she was determined. The Hegemony flagship tried to evade, but the human ship adjusted course with her remaining, maneuvering thrusters. Admiral Thexvar watched in horror as the human vessel approached. "All weapons, target that ship. Destroy it before it reaches us." Energy beams and missiles converged on the Sisyphus. They tore through her hull, destroyed her remaining systems and killed most of her crew. But they couldn't stop her momentum. 40,000 tons of metal and determination continued toward its target. Captain Rodriguez, dying at her post, managed one last transmission. "See you in hell, you crystal bastard." The impact was visible from Earth. The Sisyphus struck the Hegemony flagship just behind the command section, her fusion charges detonating simultaneously. The explosion lit up space like a brief new star. When the light faded, Admiral Thexvar's flagship was broken in half. The effect on human morale was immediate and electric. Across the fleet, crews who had been fighting desperately against impossible odds suddenly found new strength. Captain Rodriguez had shown them something important. They could hurt these aliens. They could make them pay. "All ships," Sarah Chen broadcast, "for Elena Rodriguez and the crew of the Sisyphus." The human response was swift and devastating. Ships that had been fighting defensively suddenly went on the attack. Mining platforms abandoned their positions to close with alien vessels. Even damaged ships with barely functioning weapons threw themselves at the enemy with renewed fury. But Elena Rodriguez had done more than inspire her own species. Unknown to the humans, their entire battle was being broadcast across the galaxy. In the early days of space travel, humanity had developed the habit of recording and transmitting everything. Every ship, every station, every major operation was documented and sent back to Earth for analysis. When the alien fleet arrived, this system had automatically activated, sending live feeds of the battle to every corner of human space. What the humans didn't realize was that their communication systems were more powerful than they thought. Decades of reverse engineering alien technology had enhanced their transmitters far beyond their original specifications. The battle broadcasts weren't just reaching human colonies. They were reaching conquered worlds throughout hegemony space. On Kepler 442b, a world that had surrendered to the hegemony 15 years earlier, the bird-like avian people watched in stunned silence as creatures that looked primitive and fragile fought back against the fleet that had conquered their world. With barely a struggle, "They're fighting," whispered Security Chief Hawk Soars High to her underground resistance cell. "The humans are actually fighting back." On the screens, they watched human ships take damage that should have been fatal and continue fighting. They saw crews working together with a coordination that seemed impossible. Most importantly, they saw something they had thought was extinct in the galaxy: hope. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. The crystalline Zephyrian's own homeworld watched as their invincible fleet struggled against a species they had never heard of. The insectoid hive queens saw individual humans making decisions that their collective consciousness couldn't comprehend. The aquatic depth dwellers observed surface creatures fighting in space with a ferocity that reminded them of their own ancient legends. Admiral Thexvar, now commanding from a backup vessel since his flagship was gone, was receiving reports that made no sense. "Sir, we're detecting unusual communication activity from conquered worlds throughout our territory." "What kind of activity?" "It appears to be organizational, sir. Resistance cells that have been dormant for years are suddenly becoming active." The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had built their empire on fear and the belief that resistance was futile. Every species they conquered was shown the same overwhelming display of force, told the same message about the futility of fighting, back and then left to despair. But now those conquered worlds were watching a species that refused to despair. The humans weren't just fighting, they were winning. More importantly, they were showing that the hegemony fleet could be hurt, could be defeated, could be stopped. On Europa Station, Captain Liu intercepted communications from across the galaxy and realized what was happening. "Ma'am," she reported to Admiral Chen, "our battle is being broadcast to hegemony worlds. We're seeing increased activity in sectors we didn't even know were occupied." Sarah felt a chill of understanding. "They're seeing that the hegemony can be beaten." "Yes, ma'am. And they're starting to believe they can fight back too." The battle in Sol system was no longer just about humanity's survival. It had become a symbol for every species that had been forced to kneel before hegemony power. Every successful human attack was a message that resistance was possible. Every alien ship destroyed was proof that the hegemony could bleed. Admiral Thexvar finally understood the scope of his disaster. He hadn't just failed to conquer a single system. He had started a galaxy-wide rebellion. His communication officer was reporting uprisings on 17 different worlds, with more joining every hour. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "human reinforcements are arriving." Thexvar turned to see new ships dropping out of hyperspace. Not the converted civilian vessels they had been fighting, but actual military ships bearing the markings of human colonies from beyond the Sol system. Word had reached the outer settlements, and they were coming home to fight. But these weren't the only reinforcements arriving. From across the galaxy, ships began appearing in Sol system. At first, they were careful, staying at long range and observing. Then the first vessel identified itself. "Human vessels," came a transmission in accented English. "This is Wing Commander Sharp Eyes of the Avian Free Fleet. We have come to assist." More voices followed. The Hive Queens announced their presence with harmonious buzzing. The Depth Dwellers sang their battle songs across the void. Even individual Zephyrians, disgusted by their empire's actions, had stolen ships to join the fight. The tide of battle shifted decisively. The hegemony fleet found themselves facing not just humanity, but representatives of every species they had conquered. Their psychological advantage evaporated as their former victims joined together in common cause. Admiral Thexvar realized he was witnessing the collapse of everything the hegemony represented. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet. They had destroyed the very idea that resistance was futile. Captain Rodriguez's sacrifice had lit a fire that was spreading across the galaxy. The age of hegemony dominance was ending, and it was ending because a cargo ship captain had decided that some things were worth dying for. The battle for Sol system had become the battle for galactic freedom, and the humans had shown everyone how to fight back. The end came not with a single decisive blow, but with the slow collapse of everything Admiral Thexvar believed about the galaxy. His fleet, once 200 strong, was down to fewer than 30 operational vessels. Around him, space was filled, with ships from a dozen different species all united by a simple idea that humans had given them. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, his voice hollow with defeat, "we're receiving surrender. Request from our own ships." Thexvar's crystalline skin flickered through colors that had no names in human language. Shades of confusion, despair, and something that might have been enlightenment. "Surrender requests? 17 vessels have requested permission to stand. Down and join the human alliance. Their crews they're saying they want to be free." It was the final impossibility in a day full of impossible things. Hegemony ships crewed by warriors who had conquered worlds were defecting to join an alliance that hadn't existed 12 hours ago. The psychological foundation of the empire was crumbling in real time. On Luna Station, Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with exhaustion and wonder. The battle was winding down, not because one side had achieved total victory, but because the other side was simply stopping. Alien ships were powering down their weapons, broadcasting requests for asylum, or simply fleeing toward the edge of the system. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres reported, "Admiral Thexvar is requesting communication." Sarah straightened her uniform and prepared for what she suspected would be a very different kind of conversation than their first contact. Put him through. The alien leader appeared on screen, but he looked nothing like the confident conqueror from earlier. His posture was slumped, his multiple eyes dim, and his crystalline skin had faded to a dull gray color. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice lacking the harsh authority it had carried before. I request permission to discuss terms." Sarah studied him carefully. "What kind of terms, Admiral?" "Terms of surrender, terms of asylum, terms of learning how you did this." The request caught Sarah off guard. Asylum? Thexavar's skin flashed colors that her translation software identified as emotional pain. "Admiral, in the past 12 hours I have watched my fleet destroyed, my empire revolt, and my understanding of the universe completely collapse. Your species has shown me that everything I believed about strength, conquest, and dominance was wrong." He paused, seeming to gather himself. "You defeated us not through superior firepower, though your hidden weapons were formidable. You defeated us not through better strategy, though your tactics were creative. You defeated us because you believe in something we never understood." "And what's that?" Sarah asked. "You believe that freedom is worth dying for. More than that, you believe it's worth living for. Every ship in my fleet was crewed by soldiers who fought because they were ordered to fight. Every ship in your fleet was crewed by people who fought because they chose to fight." Sarah felt a strange mixture of pride and pity. "What do you want from us, Admiral?" "I want to learn. I want my people to learn. We built an empire based on fear and submission, and it lasted for 1,000 years. You built a civilization based on freedom and choice, and it defeated us in a single day." Around the command center, Sarah's officers exchanged glances. This wasn't how they had expected the battle to end. "Admiral Thexvar," Sarah said carefully, "are you asking to join our alliance?" "I am asking for the chance to become worthy of joining your alliance. My people, we have committed terrible crimes across the galaxy. We have enslaved entire species, destroyed worlds, crushed hope wherever we found it. We cannot undo those crimes." His skin brightened slightly. "But perhaps we can learn to do better. Perhaps we can help rebuild what we destroyed." The conversation was interrupted by a communication from Captain Liu on Europa Station. "Admiral Chen, we're receiving transmission from across the galaxy. 17 hegemony worlds have declared independence in the last hour. They're requesting assistance in establishing free governments." Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. What had started as a defense of Earth was turning into something much larger. "Admiral Thexvar," she said, "I'm going to need to discuss this with my people and our new allies. But I want to ask you something first." "Anything, Admiral." "Why did you really come here? Your fleet could have bypassed our system entirely. We weren't a threat to your empire. Why risk a battle?" Thexvar's coloration shifted to what the computer identified as shame. "Because we had heard rumors about your species. Stories from the edge of hegemony space about creatures that refused to submit, that turned every setback into an opportunity. That seemed to get stronger the more pressure was applied to them." He paused. "We came here not to conquer you, Admiral Chen. We came here because we were afraid of you. We were afraid of what you represented, the idea that beings could choose to be free rather than accept subjugation." Sarah felt a chill of understanding. "You came here to eliminate the idea of freedom." "Yes. And instead, we spread it across the galaxy. The irony was perfect and terrible. By trying to crush humanity's example, the hegemony had broadcast it to every conquered world. By demonstrating their power, they had shown their weakness. By fighting to preserve their empire of fear, they had created an alliance of hope." Over the next several hours, as the battle officially ended and the negotiations began, the full scope of what had happened became clear. The Human Defensive Sol system had triggered uprisings on 37 worlds. The hegemony's communication networks, used to coordinate their attack on Earth, had been used by rebels to coordinate their own liberation. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together. united by the simple human idea that beings should be free to choose their own destinies. The avian people were sharing flight technology with the depth dwellers. The hive queens were teaching individual decision-making to species that had never known collective consciousness. Sarah found herself in the unexpected position of helping to write the charter for a galactic alliance that stretched across thousands of light years and dozens of species. The document was being transmitted simultaneously to worlds throughout known space, translated into hundreds of languages and communication methods. The charter was surprisingly simple. Every being has the right to choose their own path. Every species has the right to govern themselves. Every world has the right to determine its own future. Freedom is not granted by others. It is claimed by those brave enough to fight for it. Admiral Thexavar was as good as his word. The former hegemony commander worked tirelessly to contact hegemony worlds and encourage their peaceful surrender to local resistance movements. Many of his own officers joined him, eager to be part of building something better than what they had helped destroy. Not all of the hegemony accepted defeat gracefully. Some commanders fled to distant sectors and tried to maintain their own small empires. Others fought desperate battles against newly liberated worlds. But the momentum was unstoppable. The idea of freedom, once released, proved impossible to contain. 6 months later, Sarah Chen stood in the same command center where she had first smiled at an alien invasion fleet. But now the room was filled with beings from a dozen different species, all working together to coordinate relief efforts for newly liberated worlds. Wing Commander Sharp Eyes of the Avian Free Fleet approached her station. Admiral Chen, the supply convoys to the former Hegemony Core worlds are ready for departure. The depth dwellers have provided medical supplies. The hive queens have contributed food production equipment, and the humans have supplied construction materials. Sarah nodded. What's the status on the Zephyrian homeworld? Stabilizing. Admiral Thexavar's provisional government is working well with the local resistance movements. They've requested additional teachers to help establish their first democratic institutions. It was still hard to believe sometimes. The species that had tried to conquer humanity was now learning democracy from the people they had planned to enslave. Lieutenant Torres, now promoted to commander, looked up from his station. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the outer rim. It appears to be a distress call from an unknown species. They're reporting contact with something called the Void Collective. Sarah smiled. It was the same smile she had given Admiral Thexavar all those months ago. The smile of someone who knew that humans specialized in impossible things. Well, she said to the mixed group of beings around her, looks like the galaxy has another problem that needs solving. Any volunteers? The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Beings from across known space raised hands, claws, tentacles, and wings. They had learned something important from their human allies. Freedom wasn't just about the right to choose your own path. It was also about the responsibility to help others find their way to freedom. The hegemony had thought their fleet would scare humanity into submission. Instead, they had awakened something that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. They had discovered that when you threaten a species that believes freedom is worth dying for, you don't get submission. You get a revolution. And revolution, like the human smile that started it all, has a way of spreading.